Welcome to Typecasting, where we're typing our favorite fictional characters on the Enneagram and taking on pop culture by the numbers.
Bye, bye, little Sebastian. You're 5,000 candles in the wind.
I thought of being like, hi, Luke, it's great.
Yes.
But no, that's good. I love it.
Thank you.
Oh
I was
my
trying
gosh.
not to open with welcome to Pawnee because I feel like every week it's just,
I know.
This is the fictional location. So instead we're at the Unity concert. We are rocking out in memoriam, the greatest tiny horse that ever lived.
Lucas, this isn't really my, this is your host, Lucas Grade, and he is the Tom to my Donna. Or maybe I'm the Donna. Maybe he's the Donna to my Tom. I think that's actually more accurate.
I had the same question in my head. I was like, which one of us is Tom and which one is Donna?
I think I'm a little more Tom.
I would love to be the Donna to your Tom.
Because I think I have more Jean Ralphios. I'm more likely to have a Jean Ralphio than you, maybe. I don't know.
Could see that.
But just weird business ideas. But I also just wanted to say, I really think you would be a good park and wrecker. I think you would be a good city planner in general. You're very thoughtful in how you do things. And I feel like event planning. And so, I feel like you might be a little similar to our Leslie Knope.
It's interesting that you say that, actually. Did you know that when I was 9 years old, the tender age of 9, I had an article written about me in the local newspaper called, the headline was, I probably still have a copy of it somewhere. The headline was 9-year-old, already a mover and a shaker, because I wrote to the mayor. I wrote a letter to the mayor and asked her to put in a crosswalk.
Of course you did.
Because I was such a nerd, my parents would not let me walk to the library alone because I had to cross a somewhat busy street. And so I wrote a letter to the mayor and I was like, I want to walk to the library, but I can't do it by myself because the traffic is too dangerous. Can you please put in a crosswalk at this intersection? And they did. So I went out and had a photo op with the mayor. Oh my God. They wrote an article about me. And I was on, it's so funny. I don't think we've ever talked about this before. So it's very funny to me that you said I'd be a good city planner because I also served on the mayor's youth advisory council all of high school.
Of course you did. He also skipped a grade, everyone. Lucas is perfect. We know.
The main takeaway here is that I was a huge nerd, actually, but we knew that already. I am talking about the Enneagram of fictional characters on season 2 of our podcast.
I'm not a nerd and I do it too. So.
That is your co-host, Mirjana Tumatua. And I was gonna say that she was the Anne to my Leslie, but I feel like, can we also be Anne and Leslie? You called me Leslie, so you know what? I think that's fair.
I'm not an Anne at all, though.
I feel like you're an Anne in the way that Leslie is always making Anne like the things that she likes. Leslie is more successful at it though. Leslie got Anne to watch all the Harry Potter movies, whereas I have been trying to get you to watch an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for 5 years. So Leslie's more effective than I am.
I don't think I'm like Anne at all. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't think there's anything you introduced to me that I like, or anyone. I mean, I'm like a chameleon a little bit, but I don't feel like I'm like Anne. I'm definitely more of a Tom. Sorry to reject it so ardently.
Just reject the introduction. Wow, brutal.
Gosh,
it's brutal out here.
Well, if you don't know what we're talking about, we're talking about Parks and Recreation, and my fun fact this week, not that we do weekly fun facts, but my fun fact is that we're both from Indiana. So we I feel like we have a specific kinship with Parks and Recreation.
We have Parks and Rec and Stranger Things. Those are the Indiana shows.
And The Middle.
Yes, my family loves
Kimmy Schmidt
The Middle.
Kimmy Schmidt is from Indiana. There's a lot of Indiana. I feel like there was another big one that just came out recently that was Indiana. I need to think about it. No, there's a lot of Indiana stuff. But yeah, we're from Indiana. So, and Parks and Rec, and so like when you're here in Indiana, everyone thinks that their town is Pawnee.
Yes.
Do you have a dog in the fight?
It's either that you think that your hometown is Pawnee, or like everyone is like, oh, I know which town is actually Pawnee.
Yeah, I think it's
Kokomo. Okay, I think it's Muncie personally, because I think they even used like the map of Muncie for the map of Pawnee.
But Muncie exists in the universe, so it can't be Muncie.
Yes, but Pawnee is fake. Like it can be based off of Muncie.
But then it's like you can't. No. You can't use, like, you know what I mean? Like, the Stark building can't be the Empire State Building, and then the Empire State Building is there. It's like one or the other.
Maybe. I will say I don't have too big of a dog in this fight, because I know my town is not Pawnee. Pawnee is probably nicer than my hometown.
I just live in a weird place in Indiana. I'll just
You live in a beautiful... Like,
yeah, your town gorgeous.
Like, if we're ranking it, your town is nicer than Pawnee, and then Pawnee is nicer than my hometown.
Absolutely. Well, we are in Pawnee this week, and we're going to be talking about, like, some of the best characters I think that have ever graced our presence.
Yes, we are, and there is no other place we can start than with the one and only Miss Leslie Knope. Amy Poehler herself. Now, there's obviously a lot of similarities to be drawn between Parks and Rec and The Office.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm personally a bigger fan of Parks and Rec, and I think part of that is because I like Leslie Knope a heck of a lot more than I like Michael Scott. Like, they're very similar in a lot of ways.
Interesting.
But, like, I personally just really struggle with Michael Scott as a character, whereas, like, Leslie, I think she's got lots of good intentions, and I like her more, I think.
I will say, though, I think the difference between The Office and Parks and Recreation, like, Leslie is a clear protagonist. And I think The Office doesn't really have one. Like, it really is... I think, like, Dwight, Michael, and Jim, from episode to episode, kind of share who the protagonist is, in a way that Leslie is, like, always the protagonist.
That's a fair point. That's fair.
You know, I don't think of them as the same, so I'm interested if this has anything to do with what you're gonna... or your types, because I do not really draw parallels between Steve, Michael, and Amy. What is wrong with me and Leslie? Like, I know them
Steve
personally.
And Amy, yes, just our
Steve and Amy
good
and
friends.
Back in our Second City days. Okay, go ahead.
You've been listening to too much Office Ladies.
I know. Honestly, that's probably it. Ew.
So, let's get into Leslie Knope. She is an absolute firecracker. She is an unstoppable force, and she knows that her job is the most important thing in the world, even when her job is, like, organizing a new park for the children of Pawnee. Like, she is in little, like, middle management, small town Indiana Parks and Recreation, but it is the most important thing in the world to her, and she, I think, just really wants to make a difference. I love just, like, how she is always 5 steps ahead of everybody else around her. She's always dragging her coworkers along, like, on all of her crazy adventures. But like I said, I think she's an idealist, and she has this, like, drive to make the world a better place, and she knows that, like, she's going to do whatever it takes to do that. So I love Leslie Knope. There's nothing that a binder can't fix for her, and she is just, like,
the binders.
Always on the move. Just this, like, little ball of energy, bouncing around, bouncing off the walls, ready to get stuff done. And I really love that we get to, like, watch her grow and find success as time goes on as well. Like, I think she has a really cool arc over the course of the show. I don't know that I have much more to say. What are your thoughts on Leslie, and what do you think her type is?
I love Leslie Knope. I really do. I think part of it's, like, I'm just not, when I was so defensive about not being an Anne earlier, it's, like, much more Leslie than I am Anne.
I would agree.
But I do love Anne so much. But I love Leslie Knope. I think you're totally spot on. I was just, like, giggling at the thought of her binders and how, like, in detail they are. And I'm an avid scrapbooker. And I can't imagine the amount of time that takes to, like, think out every detail of everything that she does. The things that I was watching just some Leslie Ron compilation, so I'm gonna have like a lot of thoughts on the two of them and how they're different, which is in a lot of ways. But Leslie goes all in and she pushes herself to the limits and she really appreciates praise. And she's just such a big idea person. She also is so loving and such a good friend. But I think she's a little competitive in how she's a good friend. I think that she's a 3.
Okay.
Really, and I know we don't usually just spell out the wings right away, but I think she's a 3 with a really, really strong wing too. I think she loves her people fiercely, but it's I think it comes from a drive of just caring about people, but she wants to be the best friend. I think of I don't know why she gets in a drinking competition with the Tammys.
Oh.
But she's drinking
I think at that point it's to defend Ron's honor. She's I'm going to win to save Ron. And
it's fueled by him, but she also, it's so weird because she's so competitive and she wants to be the very best friend of everyone in the room. And I think of how she was even kind of competitive with Anne when she was in love with the office hottie in seasons 1 and 2. But then she just has to be the best and she cares about things. But I think it's just a little bit misplaced. And I just I could feel in your explanation earlier that you're going to have a 2. And I don't have the strongest reason why. So I'd rather defend than be offense right now. So what's your idea, Lucas?
Well, you are correct. I think, again, we don't always hop in with the wing right away. I think she's a 2 with a very strong wing 3. I think that she has, more than anything, she needs to be needed. She inserts herself, she meddles, she is always on the lookout for, problems that she can fix, ways that she can help, and she always has to be on the front lines to do it. But I am very torn. I think she is right in between those two things. She is such an effective person and is such a powerhouse that I see a lot of the type 3 in her. I'm thinking about, you sent me a TikTok the other day about somebody who was talking about the Enneagram and the concept of naming the types and how naming the different types is not always the most helpful because they're such full complex pictures of personality that one word or name isn't always the most helpful. But the way that it had presented a new system or a new set of names, and the type 3 was called the effective person. And I think Leslie is such an effective person. When she wants to do something, she won't stop until she sees that vision through. So I do see that type 3. But when I think about her core motivation and also about the way, speaking of some really sweet Leslie and Ron moments, the way that she refuses to let Ron shut her out. She is you are going to be my friend no matter what. But she's also a really good friend to him. She's really good at anticipating his needs. The episode that I was watching, his birthday was coming up and he was terrified that Leslie's going to throw him this big surprise birthday party with all of these people that he doesn't want to see, do all this stuff that he doesn't want to do, all this pomp and circumstance. And then at the end of the episode, he has literally slept in the office all week because he's so afraid of this surprise party.
I know.
And Leslie shows up and she's like, hey, there's a meeting in the conference room. And he is absolutely paralyzed with fear as she's walking him to this surprise party. And she opens the door and she has just set out this steak dinner for him. She's set up a cab to take him home when he's done drinking all of this really nice whiskey that she knows he's gonna like. And she just she's like, I threw that big party for Anne, but you're not Anne. I know who you are. I know what you want. And she anticipates those needs so well. And she also, I think, just needs to be needed in that way that I see a lot of the core motivation of the type 2 and a lot of the execution and the action of the type 3.
Well, and I also think the reason that story brought back the memory of when she finally wins councilwoman and she's looking at everything she's done and she's like, I just could never thank you guys enough. Oh, you know what? I'm actually going to save this for Ron. But I think I see her tenacity and her fire for like doing what's right. It is fueled by that people though. So I think she's just like a really, really sweet blend of the 3 and 2.
She is.
Do you feel comfortable giving her a 3 versus a 2? Or do you want to do the 2 versus the 3? I think you made a better argument than me again, but I feel correct in my gut.
I personally feel more attuned. The core of the type 3 is like needing to be successful to be valued. And the 2 needed to be loved. And like, I think about even the sins of like the 3, like the quote unquote sin is deceit and being like a chameleon and kind of putting on a face. Whereas the 2 is pride and like knowing what's best and trying to fix other people's problems for them. And like, kind of seeing themselves as like knowing better than other people and so helping them. I feel more connected, like I said, at the core to the 2 with that wing 3.
I don't think I remember that was the 2's.
You never remember it. I have brought this up multiple times, and you're always like, that just doesn't sound right to me. And I'm like, girl.
It doesn't. You have to admit, it doesn't feel right. Like, I understand that it's correct, but it doesn't feel correct. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, and I think that's true. It's not obvious. When you look at, like, the behavior of a type 2, you don't always, like, you would not assume. But that's, I think, part of the Enneagram is, like, we sometimes forget that the Enneagram is about, like, those underlying, like, sometimes less favorable qualities.
I know, I just think of theirs as, like, manipulate. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm wrong, and, like, we are not the inventors of the Enneagram. I just been saying, like, just so I want it on the record again that I don't like it.
Yes.
But, if that's what it is, we could give her... Oh, I feel bad about this. Like, I'm just thinking, like, she is a politician. That's just, like, what I keep thinking.
That's a great point.
And, like, the type of friend that she is, I'm just, like, she's trying to succeed. And, like, she can't sleep at night because she, like, that's, like, one of the hallmarks of being a 3 is, like, I love that the Road Back to You always says, like, 3s could sell a Mac to Bill Gates and they bring work on vacation with them. And that's usually how I can tell if someone has a wing 3 or not. And I'm like, that is so Leslie. Like, she's never sat down a day in her life to not do work. And, like, if she tries to, she, like, blows up. Like, where were they? That camping trip? Was it the camping trip where she, like, ended up making multiple, but like, she was just going, like, she's just kind of off
It happens a lot. And I do hear that. Like, she does have that workaholic nature. Mm-hmm. But I think it's like her drive is about the people. Like, her work is about the end product of helping people. I think that's why she went into public service. Like, I
just think, like, 2s can like, I think the 3 feels the 2 feels the. Okay, I'm giving up, everyone. This doesn't happen very often.
You know, like electric cars. I don't know if that's even the best example, but like the model or the make is like Tesla, but it runs on like electricity.
Cars, Lucas.
So hear me out. It's okay. The model or the make is like Tesla. The Tesla is the 3. That's like what you see. That's like what she's presenting. Mm-hmm. But the electricity that she's running on, I think, is the type 2.
But which one becomes the Enneagram then?
Your type. Your type is like at your core. It's not how you present.
I get that, but I'm like, well...
So I'm saying that the electricity is the type.
Tesla is the type of car.
Yes, it is, but like, I don't think it runs
like,
on the 2.
I don't think that negates anything. That's the point. Like, I'm like, they still are Tesla.
I'm saying that I present a lot like a 7. Like in college when I was typing myself, I presented a lot like a 7 and a lot like a 2. However, my core was a 4, and like that was what was most important to me on my Enneagram.
I think I think the car thing was a little off because it's still a car. It's still is a Tesla.
Erase the car from the record. Scratch that.
Okay, taking it back. Okay.
So,
I do not feel good about this, but I do have a wing 3, so that's me having a hard time giving up. So I will, because we still have 3 more characters to go through, so I'll let it go. I'll let it go. And
okay, who's next?
Next up is the Ron Swanson. Well, I love Ron Swanson. Ron Swanson is the opposite of who I am, I feel like, in so many ways, and also of Leslie. He is a starch libertarian man's man. And we don't love gender binary stereotypes here on this podcast, but I think he would describe himself as a man's man. And he loves meat and wrestling and honor and fortitude, I think. I don't know 100% sure what that word means. It came to my mind. And he is big and rough, and he loves to, like, take the world for what it is. And what I mean by that is, like, this is grain from the valley and beer from the you know what I mean?
Right.
And, like, I just think it's kind of hilarious. And he's very intense. And my favorite line from him is, like, going up to this restaurant, and I think it's in a new town. I don't think they've been there before. And he's like, I'd like all the bacon you have. And the guy's like, okay. And he walks away and he goes, son, come back here. I think you might have heard me say I'd like a lot of bacon. Hear me correctly when I say I'd like all the bacon you have. That is so Ron Swanson. He's a woodworker and he has a secret identity.
Mm-hmm.
And he also is by night, he is a saxophone player. So that's Ron Swanson.
A man of multitudes. He's got layers. Very like Shrek, like gruff on the outside.
I think he has like switches. I don't think they're layers. I think he's in like 3 different modes.
I could see that.
I got 3 modes. That's it. I know it's not exactly true. That is what I'm talking about. Yes. What is his type, Lucas?
Okay, so I have a couple different numbers. I could see the type 5 in that I think he's very like independent, and he spends a lot of his time like in his own head. Like he could sit in silence with his own thoughts for months in the middle of a cabin in the woods and be totally fine with it. Like I think that he has that like security and comfort, and also like you talked about, he loves like milling things from the earth and like getting them from the natural source, and like 5s often find security in like knowledge and like knowing like if I know how to do this I will be fine. Like I can find security in the knowledge of how to do things or how things work. And so I think that he has some of that type 5 in him. However, as I was like rewatching some different compilations, another number did come up because he has such a specific view of the world. And like, he is very much about there is a right way and a wrong way to do things. 80% of the world, probably more, is doing it the wrong way. And he is going to like let them know. And he's also going to like abide by his strict code of conduct and like the right way to live in the way that I think a type 1 does. So the 1 came up a little later for me. I'm kind of between the 2, but that is where I am at. What do you think? Do you like agree?
I liked
disagree?
your analysis of the 5. I think like
thank you.
He is incredibly logical, and to the fact and like emotions do not take part in any of his decisions.
Right.
However, he like quite literally has like a code of ethics that he lives by, that he like has written down, and everyone used to have it on their walls in college. Like and he does that. And I also think that he does not show himself grace very well. He does, when he messes up pretty big, I will say, in the show, for the sake of the show. But this man, if I've ever seen a 1, that is a Ron Swanson to me. And like the fact that just like there's right and there's wrong, and like he likes you if you're right and he doesn't like you if you're wrong, until he gets to know you, which we do see a lot of that as well. which is why I think, do you mind if I spill the wing?
Oh, go for it.
I think he has, I think it's a hard one. I don't think it's as obvious as it is when you were talking about Leslie, but I think he has a wing too. And so sometimes when we get to see those little soft peaks of him, like whether it be the children that I think he just doesn't really like children, but like he like learns to care for his stepdaughters and eventually his son and Leslie and how much he loves her. And the moment I was talking about earlier when she ran for councilwoman and then won, and he was like, we did this because we think you'd be good at this. And like, and we didn't do this because like we're your friends, but we are. But like, and just like the love and tenderness he knows how to show people. And at the very end, like how he just wants to have lunch with Leslie. Like I just like, I think he has that too, and that compassion for others and understanding and anticipating their wants, but he doesn't really usually care. But he knows
right.
it.
Right.
So I think he's a one wing too. What do you think? What do you think about that analysis?
Okay. I think I like that analysis a lot. I think I could be sold on the wing too. I think what's something that's really interesting about Ron is he has these like Tammys in his life.
I know.
The string of Tammys. And I wonder if that's almost him externalizing his inner critic.
That's like exactly what I thought about. I didn't know how to articulate that.
Because he, I think, doesn't display on his own a ton of his inner critic. Like, I don't think we see him second guessing himself. But when he gets into these relationships, he finds, I think, women who in different ways kind of like control and shape and mold him. And I think that that's where he like is externalizing his inner critic into somebody else that can like tell him what he's doing wrong and like how he should be doing his life differently. Because he does, I think, shape and mold himself very differently depending on those different relationships and the different like wives that he is entangled with at any given moment.
Absolutely. No, that totally makes sense. I think that's like, no, it's like when he messes up, he does go pretty crazy. And they always are around Tammy's.
Yes.
But I think he's a one. So let's put this in writing. Let's make this official.
I love it. Okay. Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier about which one of us was a Tom, which one of us was a Donna. Spoiler alert, we are saving Donna for next week. But let's get into the one, the only Tom Haverford.
Oh my gosh, tell me about him.
He is a man of luxury and a man of ideas. He, like...
Excess, I feel like is a good way to...
That is the perfect way to describe Tom. A man of excess. He's got all these different ideas. He and John Ralphio find themselves in all these different, like, business schemes that they can concoct up, these new ideas, the next big thing. I like that we get to see him actually realize one of his dreams because I don't think he does it very often where he like, I think he has a lot of ideas and then just kind of leaves them behind. Where he opens up, what is it called? Like Tommy's Place. But he is
Tommy's
also
Corner?
like...
Tom's Corner? No, maybe it's Tommy's Place. I don't know.
Maybe. It's a restaurant. It looked very nice. Good for him. I
was thinking about his clothing store.
Oh, no. I was thinking about the restaurant.
Wait, are you about the restaurant? Are you thinking of, what was the other thing? 180, 240? What was that club that was just like there?
Oh, gosh.
There's a lot of them.
I was even just watching a scene where they were thinking of ideas to improve water fountains in the parks. And he's like, it was a suitcase full of Voss glass water bottles. He was like, it's only $600 this suitcase. But yeah, that is Tom. He's very dramatic. What was the other one? They were camping and he has brought his own backup generator. He's got all these electronics and he ends up just like glamping out in the woods. He is not one for discomfort and he likes to live the high life. Even Anne kind of gets sucked into it. Literally, it blew my mind. I forgot that they dated. But when they're dating, Anne is like, Leslie, look at his apartment. Like, everything is so nice. When does he have time to put out this cheese plate? Like, all of this stuff. So, he's something of an enigma. He's quite the character. I think he could land a couple different places. What do you think his type is?
So, I also just want to like, he has created so many cultural resets. Like, treat yourself was like not a thing until Tom and Donna said it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And
Seriously.
like all of his like chicky chicky parm parm.
Chicky parm
parm. What does he call appetizers? Tizers? Apsies? I don't know. They're always like the longer, short versions of things. Oh my gosh, he is so funny, and I just like can't get over like his lavish parts of life. And like this man, my 4 radar went off like immediately. I was like, I know, and when I see him, look at the drama, look at the like the emotions. Like, who lets a grown man just like, he just cries when he doesn't get his way? Because he's like, I think the same thing. They're like, how do you afford this stuff? And he's like, well, I just like, I'll return it and say it was defective. And he's like, sometimes they're suspicious, and then I just cry. Like, no one likes to see a grown man cry. It makes everyone uncomfortable. And it's like, yeah, I think his emotions are in weird places, but that man is a 4. Like, the drama, the silliness, the self-centeredness of it all. We love him so much, and he's a 4.
I think that's totally fair. It's not like, it wasn't my number 1 option, but I think you make a really good argument for it. Like, I'm thinking about how just dramatic he is. And also, like you said, with his self-centeredness, there's also the type 4's tendency towards like main character syndrome and like thinking and feeling like exceptional and special. And like,
absolutely.
Tom doesn't even think it. He knows it. Like, he is just like, he knows he's the most.
I think if he were to see it, because I like the difference between The Office and like Parks and Rec. Like, The Office in the end, they like get to see the show and we get to hear how the characters like react to seeing themselves. If he saw the show and realized he was not the main character, I think he would flip out. We would be hearing from his lawyers.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love him.
I kind of thought he might have been that 7 because he is that ideas guy, and I think he's always kind of like chasing the next big thing, and he has that sense of directionlessness at times, because he's like, oh, that sounds fun, oh, that sounds good. Jean-Ralphio definitely like exacerbates that and like brings out that side of him as we see those characters as time goes on. But I was convinced by your 4 argument. I wanted to give the little shout out.
It's like not even an argument. It's just like a feel. Like, it's just like oh, he's one of us.
It's just like a fact. Like, you just look at him.
The 7 is interesting. I don't remember too much about Lucy. I don't know why. She's not in a ton of seasons, or a ton of episodes. But I do think Lucy might be a 7, like a grounded 7, and like grounds it, and that's how, and they connect on that. I'd be interested to do a deep dive on that later in my life, but not today. Yes, our man Tommy is a 4-wing 3. I didn't even say that.
Definitely wing 3. He doesn't have a 5 bone in his body.
No, and just like I don't know if he's a successful 3, but like that's who he is. Like he's always trying,
right?
And he's like trying to be successful, and he's just like so sure he's meant to be a millionaire. And I just love that about. He is, I think, one of the funniest characters on TV, let alone in this series.
He and I think, kind of have that in common. Maybe not the millionaire, but like, I do have that feeling inside of myself where I'm like, yeah, I could be famous one day.
I'm going to be famous. Yeah.
You know, like.
I knew you were going to say that.
And I think he has that. I think he and I share that side of the type 4.
Yeah. And I hear that. That definitely, yeah, we argue about that a lot. But I see you, and I honor you, and I hope the best.
Thank you.
Whether or not that means fame, I don't want to be famous. But okay. Oh, we still have one more character, and honestly, I don't really have very intense TV crushes. I really like that's just not who I am in general. But this guy, like, I do want a Ben myself. I love him so much. So our next character is Ben Wyatt. Dreamy. He is the auditor of the city of Pawnee, and they're supposed to just be there for like just a moment, coming through, and going through the town and understanding, what it's worth and what's going to happen, and then there ends up being a huge project. That is a part of it for the state, and he has to stay there with his partner. Chris Traeger. I love
Chris
him so
Traeger.
much. And he is such a nerd. Like, that's one of the things that we kind of just like see in him. And he is in love with Leslie Knope, and they are so cute together. He's definitely the logical one of the gang. And in a lot of ways, he is kind of like the Jim of the show, I think, where he's just like, oh, like if a normal person got like thrown into, like, he's kind of our guide into this like crazy world. But he does have some extreme tendencies as well, that we get to see. So, Lucas, I'm so curious. Tell us more about our dear friend Ben Wyatt.
Yes, I love Ben. I think I'm similar to Leslie. I'm kind of between two numbers that are like right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
My gut feeling was a type 6 with a strong wing 5. I think that he, and obviously we see a lot of this in his relationship with Leslie, like the deep loyalty, like the deep connections, but he also has that level of like, this is what's going to go wrong. I mean, he's an auditor, like he works in numbers, like he's about worst case scenarios, and he's like, we need to like prepare. He's also lived in a very developmental time in his life. He lived through the worst case scenario with Icetown.
So like at the tender ripe age of 18, the earliest you can be a mayor of a town, Ben Wyatt decided to run to be mayor, and he won, and it was like really incredible. And he decided to make his entire town into an amusement park made of ice because it was in Minnesota and it's cold in Minnesota. It was a great idea, but no one came because no one likes the cold. And like he froze a lot of their assets. like a lot of things that people wanted. There's like a lot, I believe, like it ended up like melting and flooding the town or something, like very dramatic, and everyone hated him. And so he fled to Indiana. And he now calculates everything to understand why they're wrong. So I do see.
Yes.
I do. That is a good point. And like I always say, like people are always like, my kid is such a 4, and I'm like, you know, I've never been a parent, but I really think you need to go through all those developmental stages until you get your Enneagram type, because that's like part of it, right?
Right.
So I hear what you're saying. I see your Icetown, and I raise you the Cones of Dunshire.
Yes.
I think he is a 5 with a wing 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think his mind is so logical. He's very introspective. And I think he grounds so many of them. And like the whole thing is like, Chris, God, man, though, the more I'm talking, the more I'm like, maybe he has a 6.
Mm.
So like Chris Traeger is like, this is the possibility of what the town could be. That's how they do their appraisals. And then he comes in and like says, but this is what it is. And then they like find somewhere in the middle, and that's how they find what a town is truly going through and worth. Man, you know what? You bested me. I think he's a 6. Well, I was like gonna say all these things because he's very knowledgeable and in his mind. And I love that his like breaking points are these super nerdy things and worlds. So I feel like that could be, but is that the symptom or the disease? I don't know.
Well, yes. So I thought you might say 5. And I think that you're right about things like Cones of Dunshire. Like, creating his own game is with, like, the intricacies that game has. And it's its own world and its own mythology and its own history. That is so type 5. Like, that is very much like me and my wing 5. Like, I totally see that. And I think there's an argument to be made there, definitely, for the type 5.
Okay.
Also, I think, like, I don't know what this points to, but I just love when he feels a little lost and a little directionless, and he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a stop motion movie. And it takes him forever, and the movie is, like, 3 seconds long. The guy just, like, stands up. Poor Ben. He really hits some rough patches, I think, as time
really does.
goes on. And like I said, I don't know if that points to one number over the other by any means. I just love and had to shout out that little part
which
his
is the
journey.
Tesla and which is the battery.
Exactly.
If someone gets an analogy and wants to try to explain it to me that's not Lucas, I'll send us an email.
Please do.
Oh
Typecastingpod@gmail.com.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh. So, my vote is for 5 Wing 6. Again, it's a feeling, and I think I'm right.
You know what? I feel pretty evenly split, and since you gave me Leslie, I will give you Ben. We'll share.
Thank you.
We'll share custody of our children, and Ben can be a 5 Wing 6.
Someday we're gonna need to like get shirts or merch, and I think it's like, I don't have any evidence, but I'm correct. Like, I am correct. I feel like I say that all the time. I'm like, I know I'm right, but I don't know why. Like, so
I don't have any evidence, but I have a gut feeling. I feel like is
exactly. And since this isn't a true crime podcast, we're allowed to do that.
That's all we need. Exactly.
Yes. Oh, we're already done.
I am having such a great time.
Oh my gosh. And next week we have even more. Next week we're talking about our favorite couple. My favorite couple, even though I just talked about how much I love Ben so much. We're talking about April and Andy. And we're also going to be putting in a little extra flavor with Donna and just kind of wrap up that conversation as we did with Tommy. And then finally we're going to be talking about Ann Perkins.
Thank you for listening to Typecasting. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at TypecastingPod, where you can vote in our weekly polls. Leave a review and be sure to join us next week when we take on more pop culture by the numbers.